Hello and welcome to my new tutorial. Last time I was talking about creating an algae plane for the swamp or whatever part of your map, wherever you want to use that one. And today I will talk about creating custom river or lake static meshes without the use of any 3D software like Blender or whichever one you would prefer. But obviously there are multiple ways to create static meshes for your rivers and lakes, and the method I'm using is just one of them that works for me, so that's why I use it. If you find any other method online and you prefer that one, you can obviously use that one as well. But yeah, for my method you will need the Ragnarok, or you will need Ragnarok inside your DevKit. As far as I know, it was added within the last DevKit patch, so make sure you're up to date. And if it is not where it's supposed to be, which is inside of the mods folder, then you should maybe join the ARK modding Discord and look for help there, because there are a few tutorials on how to download it manually. Yes, but it should be inside the basic and default DevKit by now. Because what you will need is the spline tool they've created. They've created a very amazing spline tool, which I really enjoy, and you could maybe create your own one as well, but I don't know. I don't know how much sense that does, because well, their spline tool is pretty good, and you can use it for lakes, for rivers, for basically anything. You need to go into the Ragnarok custom assets folder, then into the environment, and then you will find the dynamic rivers folder. Inside the dynamic rivers folder you can find the ARK river spline, which is a blueprint, which is the blueprint you will use. You can just use that one like any other spline, drag it out, and then you have those 2 points where you can select the second one and just drag it wherever you want. Hold Alt or press down Alt and then drag to just create a new point. And yeah, you can create any shape you want, and you can obviously also make it any size you want. Yeah, that's how to use the river spline tool. And as you can see, it also has a, well, let's call it a flow map. So it has a material, which is the MI ARK rivers, which is based on the MM ARK rivers, obviously, and it already has that beautiful flow in it, which you can use if you use this method. So I will delete that one because I've already created one for a lake. The lake is not supposed to have that flow, but you can simply use another material for that later. I will show that, so no problem. Once you've created your river spline and set it up the way you want it to be, this one is not actually perfect. Well, it's fine. So, you need to make sure you are still in the same level as the one that you've created your river spline in, because otherwise the export will work, or will not work properly. So in my case I've created it in the persistent level, so just make sure to still be in the same level. And then you can select it in the scene outliner, go to File, Export Selected, and then I usually go to Rivers and Lakes. This is going to be a lake inside a G4 level, so I'll just call it the G4 lake. And now it's exported to a beautiful folder. There it is, G4 lake. You could now go into a 3D program and maybe like edit the vertices, and you know, which could be a good idea, but you don't have to do that. At least I don't feel like it's really bad for the performance if you don't use any 3D program after that step. So anyways, you can then re-import that mesh that you've just exported. I have my own folders for all of these. Then you can just click import wherever you want it to be imported, and import a G4 lake, import all. You don't need any skeletal mesh or something. There's no smoothing group. As I've said, you can do that in any 3D program if you would like to, but you don't have to. Yeah, then you have the G4 lake, and I usually actually use a simple collisionless complex and really use a triangle mesh. I simply activate it because in some cases, or most of the cases, if I would want to create a copy of that lake and use it to create water lilies or lily pads. By the way, ARK has a beautiful tutorial on that one. I will link it in the description. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't need to create a collision or something like that. You can just use that one because there will be no collision in if you simply use the BP island water plane. It automatically has no collision, so even though you give it a collision, it doesn't use it. Yeah, you can use it, but it doesn't usually. So once you've set it up, either with a collision, or if you don't want one, then you can just leave that step. You need the BP Island Waterplane Lake. You can just search for that one in the content browser. Just go to Primal Earth and then go for Island Waterplane, and it should show up the lake one. And make sure the size is set to 1. And then you can go to wherever you have your static mesh saved, and simply use that one as a water plane. Now it will be gone apparently, but don't worry, you just have to set all of that to 0. And I see I've made a mistake. I've made a mistake. Oh, actually, that shouldn't be too bad. I hope. I know what it is about. I would need to go into Blender to fix that, but it is because it's kind of curved, and that's unnecessary. And I will fix that. 1 second. So, welcome back. I've simply fixed it in a few seconds. For those wondering, the river spline was very curved, and sometimes weird things happen if it's too curved. So it was actually good that it happened. So make sure it's not like that or anything, because as you were able to see, problems might occur or might happen. I don't know. So once you have your water plane re-imported or imported, and everything's set to 0, you will see that the lake water matte island is working very weird. I will be honest, I was really trying to fix that for a very, very long time, but I wasn't able to find a fix until today, except for one. Well, there is I wasn't able to fix the material itself, but I found the material within the aberration environment and the fertile chamber and the water folder, which is the Mick Jesus Lake or the Mick Ruin Lake, whichever one you want. These materials are working fine. I've created my own one, but they are based off these ones, so you can just use the Jesus Lake water, and you can see it working fine. The Jesus Lake water. And for the underside, because as you can see, like, yes, it's floating in the air, we will get to that in just a second, but It's also looking weird. These are kind of the cons of my method of doing it, but it's working. So you just need to get it to work once. Just use the mi water underside within the aberration folder for the underside. Next step would be to fix the floating underside, because right now it is not where it's supposed to be. But that's pretty easy, as I said. Once you simply, you need to do it a couple of times. Yeah, let's say it like that. You need to do it a couple of times, and then it's gonna be pretty easy and pretty standard. And yeah, you need the z height of your rack river spline, which is -6257 in this case. 6257 times 2. You don't need the minus. In case if it has a minus, it needs to be a plus, and if your river spline is in a positive z area, so it has a positive value, then you would actually need to add the minus. So you need to multiply the z value with -2, basically. So my engine just decided to to hide, but you need to multiply that value with -2, basically. In this case, what did I say? It's a positive 12,514, and this is the value that is going to be the underside z offset. Wait, what? I didn't. No, it's 14, and then you can check it out. It's perfectly where it's supposed to be. And now you have everything working. If you want to create a lake, if you want to create a river, it is basically the exact same thing, the exact same procedure, except for one thing, namely the materials. Dynamic rivers. Because, as I've said, the good part about the river spline tool is that they already have the kind of a flow map in them. So you can use the mi rack rivers. You need to make sure that you copy that material to your map folder, as well as the underside material and the materials they are based off, which is the rack rivers. So I will show that. 1 second. I have my mi Tartarus rivers, so there it is. Which is based on the Tartarus rivers, which is basically just I've just copied them from the Ragnarok folder. But you need to copy them to your mod folder, because Ragnarok is not part of the base of the base ARK download. So not everyone will have the Ragnarok assets in their engine, in their ARK game. So you will need to get these into your mod folder so everyone can see the material. You just need to relink everything, and then you can use the exact same material, and it will have the beautiful flow map and the underside as well. I don't want that, I want the lake, so I will use the Jesus Lake water and the mi water underside. But that's actually up to you. You can also create your very own material, but that is completely up to you. I hope that I didn't forget anything, but that should be mainly everything. As I've said, if you want to use the river material they've created, make sure to copy everything, and you will also need to replace that texture. I've just seen that. You will also need to copy that texture and replace that one within the Tartarus rivers. Like, for most people it will work fine, at least for those people who have downloaded Ragnarok. But if you really want to publish your map then the chance is pretty high that there will be people who have simply not downloaded or don't want to download Ragnarok, and I would not be able to see your lake because they don't have the material. Yes, so let's conclude everything very short. You need to get the river spline wherever you want it to be. Yeah, that one is weird now because it was an example. You need to export it. Make sure to keep it because you will need the Z height. After you have the Z height and after you have the underside Z offset, you can delete the river spline. Because if you need the Z height of the lake, you can just take that one and multiply it with 0.5, add a minus in front of it, and then you will have the Z height. For example, if you want to add post-process volume, which is very likely, you will need the Z height. But other than that, you can delete the river spline. And yes, make sure the size is on 1, the locations are all zeroed out. The underside Z offset, you have the new water plane, you have the materials, which you can either use the ones that already exist, you can copy them to your mod folder and modify them, you can create your own ones, that's really up to you. And that's basically it. It might sound a little complicated, I will admit it, but it's a pretty easy way. Once you got around it and once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty easy. And the problem with these... Oh, that's the wrong one. I wanted to show something. The problem with these, the normal ones, the normal BP Island water planes, which use the shared lake, is that it's always that rectangle, you know, it's... So you can obviously do that, but for example, if I would want to do that, then there will be parts where it simply doesn't really fit, and then you would have to redo the entire landscape and stuff like that. So I found that method better, but in the end it's up to you. So that was it for that tutorial. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and if you want any more tutorials, or if you have any new topics for tutorials, just leave them in the comments below. If you have any more questions that might be too small for tutorials, you can always join the ARK modding Discord, which is linked in the description, and you can take a look at Axelog's tutorials. Axelog has a brand new series of tutorials where he answers a lot of questions. Yeah, so that was it for today, and I hope everything was good. I know it might be a little bit complicated in the beginning, but I think it's doable once you learn it. Learn it sounds bad, but once you've done it a couple of times. I've said that 5 times now, so it's time to end now. So, see you in the next tutorial.